When people argue about Gaza online, they argue with slogans. Today, you're going to hear from someone who argues with experience. Stav Cohen is an Israeli Special Forces reservist. He's been in and out of Gaza since October 7th. He's fought an enemy that hides behind civilians, beneath hospitals, and inside tunnels longer than the New York subway system. He's also lost close friends. This conversation isn't about politics. It's about what war actually looks like when you're the one inside it. Stav, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure is all mine.
Before the uniform, before the weapon, before the strength, who were you? Take us back to, your childhood, your background, and what did it look like?
Well, I was the shortest, skinniest kid that you can imagine with the highest voice. They literally took me to doctors just to make sure that some of these days I'll grow. Growing up as a skinny, short kid in Israel, I guess in any country, it's tough, you're getting bullies, giving you hard time. And I didn't have that many friends, as you can tell, but I did have one friend, true friend. His name is Omri. And when you barely have friends and when the kids are going out Friday, Saturday night and you're not getting the call, and when they have WhatsApp groups and you're not in it, you're feeling invisible and basically worthless. And that guy, that kid, Omri, when I felt invisible, he saw me, And one of the nights they went, all of the guys, all of the kids in our moshav, in our community village, they broke into the pool. Well, you're 15, 16, you don't have anything better to do. You just break in and then you go out because that's that's the peak of the night. So they went, everybody, and I knew that they went there, and I was sad because they, never got invited. And then Omri noticed that I was sad about it the next day. So he took me, and then both of us broke in. And I heard my foot could barely walk a week, but that was the happiest night of my childhood because I, for once, felt belonged. And that kid, Omri, that friend of mine, just like you said, got murdered at the Nova Festival. So that's actually aligns with who I am, how my childhood looked like.
So take us to October 7th. When did you first hear that something was happening at the Nova Festival? And when was the exact moment you realized that Omri was there?
29 a.m. Saturday night. I spent the night over at my girlfriend's place back then. Today, my wife, thank you. Prettiest woman on earth, by the way, if she asks. This is what I said. So we spent the night. We just woke up to the sirens, right? So, you're Israeli, or if you go to Israel every once in a while, it's not that new to wake up to a siren. So you run to the shelter, and it's just that the booms were it was insane. Usually you can hear something exploding far away. This time, though, it was too much, too loud, too close, too often, if it makes sense to you, So I ran back to upstairs, grabbed my phone, opened Telegram, this application that you can see everything uncensored. And I saw Hamas terrorists walking in the middle of Israel, in the middle of those kibbutzim, southern Israel, as if they own the place. And then I saw this one terrorist just shooting down really old women, I'd say 75, 80 something. And at first I thought that was AI, There's no way Hamas terrorists, imagine that Hamas terrorists are literally broadcasting themselves from within DC, New York, San Francisco, Vegas, LA, just shooting, hunting down people as if they were ducks. And then I realized that I can recognize some of these places, and I noticed, I got it that it's not AI. This is for real. So I immediately gave my wife, my girlfriend back then, kiss on a forehead, grabbed my pistol, which I have with me 24/7. Ever since I finished my 3 years mandatory service, I carry it with me. When I go to sleep, it's below my pillow. And it's not because I have this nightmares from war and I always got to be ready. I'm an Israeli. This is how we do it. If you serve in the army, that that it could always, that the next round is always beyond the corner. Never expected October 7th, though. So I grabbed my pistol, ran to the car, drove down south I felt as if I'm in this part of a movie like Saving Private Ryan, like explosions all over the place, sirens going on and on and off, on and off. The highway is completely empty. Things, they're just flying all over the place. You literally can see where the rockets are hitting, and it's pretty close to you. So I pulled over because I had to find shelter. And I found this really high wall, and a bunch of other civilians, drivers, pulled over and tried to hide there next to the wall. And I saw this really young mother, I'd say 40-ish at the most, curly brown hair with her 7, 8-year-old kid boy. And he was so afraid. He literally, so she hugged him and they were on the floor, right? And he was shaking and he tucked his fingers in the gap between her ankle and her boots because he really tried to hide. And she was helpless because she couldn't protect her own kid. And I'm sure, I don't know it just yet, but you know way better than me, of course, that as a parent, the worst feeling on this earth, it's gotta be that you cannot protect your kid. And I looked and I saw it. I saw her eyes. I saw how she was helpless. And then I realized that you have more mothers with more 8-year-old kids down south that are under immediate danger, not just rockets. So I ran back to the car, the gear on first gear, drove like maniac. And this is when the IDF, by the way, called me and told me, hey, Stav, like call up order. You got to show up. No Sherlock. I'm on my way. And this is how it all began, actually.
Wow. So tell me what happened after that. Did you end up getting to the Nova Festival?
No, not even close. By the way, I didn't know that Omri or any other of I had 4 friends who murdered at the Nova Festival. Didn't know about any of them going there. It's just a party, so you're not always know where your friend's going. And I actually fought for 2 intensive days. And then on October 9th, pulled out my phone and I saw on Facebook that he died, and I immediately said, well, this can't be. I mean, someone is mistaken. But his dad was the one to post it. And I told myself, well, his dad is wrong. It's, what do you mean Omri died? Like when you read on newspaper, some car accident way up there, someone died, or like terror attacks way up there, someone died. Like Omri, that's the someone, my Omri, my savior when I was a kid. And this is when I learned about Omri and about 2 other of our friends who tried to rescue him after he got shot in his back. Instead of running away, 2 of our other friends, Sue and Aviad, simply grabbed him and ran with him against every survival instinct. Think about it. Even a dog would chase you. You would leave everything and literally run for your life. Not alas, terrorists, a bunch of them. But they never left him because Omri wasn't kind of a person that you can just leave behind. And they paid with their lives. They were too slow, so they got shot as well. And they found them kind of like hugging each other, lying each other in the back of a car on this famous blood road that everybody saw on October 7th outside of the Nova Festival.
What did it feel like to realize that day that the country is being invaded in real time, that really there was no pushback to Hamas? What was your feelings at that point?
I felt that I've been lied to my entire life. I was full of anger. It wasn't even sad. I was angry. Still am, actually. But back then I was furious. I mean, you hear all of your life. You hear prime ministers, doesn't matter who. It's not about politics. You hear this one and that one saying what capabilities we have against our enemies. And you see IDF from within for 12 years, and you see how much power we have. And you hear about Mossad, you hear about Shin Bet, Shabak, and Air Force, and nukes that Israel have, and nuclear weapons. And where was all that? How did they manage to do that? How could we be so blind? And I was mostly furious about, I don't want to get too much into to open that door. October 7th it never happened in a vacuum. The enemy noticed, meaning Sinwar and Hamadef and everybody, they noticed that we were vulnerable because some groups in Israel literally called for other soldiers and reservists not to deploy, not to come whenever they get the call-up order. So the enemy realized that we're weak. You know, I always say in my lectures, in my events in the US, that in the Middle East, when someone is not afraid of you, then you better be start afraid of him. They weren't afraid on October 7th. And this is why it happened. And they weren't afraid because we were never united. Speaking of united, just one last sentence, if I may. Last week, I interviewed the Green Prince, Mus'ab Hassan Yosef, the son of Hamas. And I asked them, Mus'ab, your dad founded Hamas. You've seen everything. You stood against the most powerful, evil people in the entire Middle East. What is it that what is the greatest danger that Israel is facing? And he looked down for like 30 seconds, never said a word. 1,000 people in the audience, no one saying a word. And then he looks at me in the eyes and he says, internal division, not Iran, not Qatar, not Turkey, not any outside enemy, but ourselves.
Exactly. When we're united, we can overcome anything.
And it's not just a slogan. This is for real. It is. I've seen it. I've been leaving the battlefield for the past 12 years, fought any terror organization that you can name, Jihad, Hamas, Fatah, any single one, saw it all, been it all. This is the truth.
Yeah. So at one point, did you go into Gaza? Can you describe going in and what it was like?
Well, first time I got into Gaza was actually when I was 18 in 2014. Previous Gaza war, kind of like the same story, same enemy, different war, meaning they kidnapped 3 Israeli teenagers back then to Hebron, but doesn't matter where they're taking them. They kidnapped 3 Israeli civilians. And then basically we went after them, not only after our hostages, but also after Hamas, Jihad. We went after them and the war broke out. So we got into Gaza. And this is when I saw for the first time in my life an actual terrorist. No one has ever told me that they will be on drugs. I couldn't imagine the hate, the level of hate. It's a tremendous amount of hate. You will shoot a terrorist in his arm, he will shoot you back with his other arm. You will shoot the other arm, he will run at you and bite you with his teeth. They've just been trained to murder. They don't care who you are, as long as you're not Muslim. By the way, many people think it's about Jews. It's not about Jews. We're just the first target. It's not even about Palestine. The slogan Free Palestine is the greatest distraction on earth. If you read through the Quran, if you listen to Ahmadinejad, to Abu Mazen, to Assisi, every radical Muslim leader, they reject political borders. They have no intention with so-called Palestine. They want to globalize Islam, have one country. Sorry, found myself going that direction. But this is when I first got into Gaza. And what I've seen there, Gaza is the backstage of hell. Pile of stones burning on fire, trees hundreds of years old, just as if God took them from the ground and throw them wherever. Bodies, bones, the smell is awful. And the reason, well, first of all, this is how battlefield looks like. The reason, for me personally, it was so hard is because we could never know who is enemy and who's not. For 12 years, I've been fighting terrorists. Not once did I saw someone with uniform. Not once do they shot at me, not on automatic mode. They always go like, because each bullet has an address. This is how they trained us, and not just special forces. Every single soldier that any of your viewers have ever met knows it by heart. Every bullet has an address.
So what is it like fighting an enemy that hides underground? And not just that, but like you said, without uniform, behind civilians? How hard is it to get rid of them?
Yeah, it's a great question. It brings you to a certain situation that BBC, Fox News, CNN, doesn't matter where are they on the political so-called wing, none of the news channels bringing that question that you just asked to the table. And this is a great question because it's actually showing the most difficult thing in the battlefield. And that is the clash of values, So let's say that an 11-year-old kid is shooting at you. Been there, happened to me. more than once. Let me ask you something, or your viewers actually. What is it? Is it an innocent 11-year-old kid, poor kid that's been brainwashed and you got to spare his life? Or is it an armed terrorist that will kill you unless you will shoot him? Which one is it? And what most people miss about Gaza, war, battlefield, is that you can have several truths going on at the same time. It's both, you know? And this is, by the way, the easiest example that I can give you. An 11-year-old kid, yeah, this is you have way more complicated situations, not just two kind of truths, but 3, 5, 7 of them taking place at the same time. And you, in the split of a second, got to choose which one is it? Which one is the strongest truth? Let me tell you this. In all of my complicated situations that I found myself in the battlefield for the past 12 years, not once did I needed international law. It's like international law is right here. We're acting with way higher moral standards, if it makes sense for you, you know? I never needed that. It's like I always put gas in my car when I'm half full. International law is the last trip. You know, I never need it.
Exactly. You've also spoken about children being used as scouts. You know,
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. Actually, a very common situation. You have a shooting battle. Again, you're shooting towards people with civilian clothes because they shot at you first, and this is how they get dressed. And all of a sudden, magic happens, and you have kids, literally kids, not 18-year-old kids on bicycles in the middle of the battlefield. And of course, they've been sent by Hamas, and they know that it's not like you won't shoot at all, but you won't shoot at that direction. I mean, if you see a 10-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid on a bicycle, you won't shoot to that direction. If it's there, you will shoot there, you know, if it makes sense for you. But this is how they can relocate, change their positions. This is how they know, this is how they can create gaps between the bullets so they can rearrange. Yeah, it's very famous. And not just kids. Let me say this, and I wish that someone will take me to a debate with polygraph machine on this one. They are sending ambulances, Red Cross, in the middle of the battlefield. I have personally, with my own eyes, saw in Gaza 2014 war, throughout the curtain, you know, the ambulance, you have this narrow window, and beyond the curtain, I could see a stretcher with black metals on it. And I wasn't entirely sure that those are weapons. But then when they opened the door and they gave it, like they handed it from one person to another, I could see, no doubt, as a soldier, you can always spot weapons. AK-47s, you name it, many, many, many weapons were on there. And I told my commander, actually, that that was a humanitarian ceasefire. So we never did a thing. By the way, speaking of Gaza, war and humanitarian ceasefire, on those conditions, they shot an RPG towards this D9, it's armed truck that digs in the ground. And it hit the RPG that Hamas shot, hit the bottom part of it because they know this is where they don't have shields. And that thing just flew in the air, flipped, went on fire. 2 soldiers got badly hit. I got the one who was severe injured, like more badly. And we grabbed him. I don't know if that's too graphic for your viewers, but his chest was wide open. We had to stuff his organs back in just to try to CPR him, but he died. Moshiko Davino, Zichrono Livracha, may he rest in peace, from Qatar in Jerusalem, died in humanitarian ceasefire, because this is a Western term that does not align with Middle East reality. And if I may, as you well know, I don't do the PC. Whenever someone is telling you, using Western term, when they're explaining you something about the Middle East, especially on war, I want you to know that they're full of that know nothing of the sort. Sorry, excuse me for my French, but peace, conflict, solution, humanitarian ceasefire, those are all Western terms. It does not exist in the battlefield. In the Middle East, you have tribes, and it's all about fighting other tribes before you got to kill them before they kill you. And you fight over 3 things, and 3 things alone. And it's power, dignity, and land. That's it.
An IDF soldier has to know when to shoot, know when not to shoot, whereas the Hamas terrorists don't take anything into account. They shoot whenever they want.
Yeah.
You said that threats come from all over. How does your body adapt to that kind of constant danger walking through a place where anything could happen at any time?
We have new questions. I've never been asked those questions. I don't know. My training was so intense, 15, 16 months of everything. They're taking you to the edge of what human can do. I'm talking about being tired, thirsty, hungry in very extreme way and carry double your weight and fight for weeks straight. So you just get used to it. I assume that in a weird way, it's kind of like being a parent. Before you're a parent, you can never imagine that you can be 24/7 so sharp about a kid, that you got to be responsible for that. You could never imagine for me right now, when I'm trying to picture it, I don't know how people are doing it, or women that going through labors. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't have anything to do with your question, but you just get used to it. And it's very helps that you're on survival mode. It's not a walk in the park. You know that every single second when you're not ready, when you're not sharp as a knife, all it takes is one bullet. We all saw Charlie Kirk. All it takes is one bullet to the neck. And unfortunately, I've seen those kind of things happening in front of my eyes. And if I may just add one more thing. At the beginning of the talk, I said that I lost friends on October 7th at the Nova Festival. Unfortunately, also in the battlefield, Mushiko Davino, just like I told you about. And another friend, Omri Michaeli, he died on October 7th as well while he fought in Kfar Aza, tried to rescue hostages. You know what? Speaking of which, I just had to say it. The reason that he died is that he found terrorists in a house in Israel, in Kfar Aza, southern Israel, in the kibbutzim on October 7th. But he suspected that some hostages are hiding, like that they have some hostages in the place. So he never threw a grenade in. He literally got in to get the terrorists, not putting the lives of the hostages in danger. Speaking of being precise, this is the cost of being precise.
Have you ever walked away from a target you knew that you could eliminate because it might hurt civilians, or for some reason it just wasn't what you thought should be done at that moment?
Yes, many times, but to be fully honest, not because what I thought, it's because commands, orders that I got. If it was up to me, I would go in, putting my life in risk, because this is my job as soldier, and getting that terrorist. Many, many, many times when we had shooting battles, engagements, you could never get all of the terrorists that shot at you. It's not like 3 terrorists are shooting at you. We're talking about, I don't even know to say how much. It's countless. You don't know. They're anywhere. It's like, imagine that you have civilian shooting at you and just disappearing from nowhere. Tunnels, buildings, wherever, you name it. So many times we're kind of like, passing on that, because we realize that the cost for them, for the civilians in Jenin, in Gaza, Rafah, wherever, will be too high.
How much control does a soldier actually have when the adrenaline is flowing through the body? You're like in the fight and flight stage. I know you said you have a lot of training. Is it still very, very difficult when you're in the moment?
Right. So here's the thing. Again, another question that no one has ever asked me, and I've been doing this for a while. You're good. In Gaza, or in the battlefield, every day feels like a week, and every week feels like a day. So when you have a shooting battle, it could last for 3, 4, 5 hours. And then when it's kind of like over-ish, you just feel like as if it was, I don't know, a minute, but you also feel as if it was a week. So that survival mode is something that I don't know how to explain it. It just, when you're hearing the bullets whistling above your head, and when you see them hitting metals, all the ground, and then it's like pops, you just do what needs to be done. Me personally, what drives me the most is to see that my friends are in immediate danger and I have to protect them. This is what motivates me in the heat of the moment.
So part of Hamas's plan is they want Israeli soldiers to make mistakes, right? They want you to mess up.
Just even hesitate. That's enough. You hesitated for a second. This is all they needed, that second. and now they ran away.
Wow. That just makes it even harder to fight them because you guys are, IDF soldiers are in restraint mode when Hamas is not following any rules. What does it feel like to risk your life to protect civilians, like you said, fighting in Gaza, and then being accused of the world of genocide, just even making up things about the IDF?
So another good question. I'll take it to March 24. That was the end of my first round of reserves, which started on October 7th, of course. Well, just actually to say that, to be more precise, I've been fighting as a reservist for years now. But speaking of October 7th terms, the first round, I fought for 4 different rounds ever since. First one was started on October 7th, ended on March 20th. And then I got back in and out. So March 24, I kind of got back into life, and I had my cell phone, I started using it again and reading the newspaper and kind of seeing what's up, because I was so busy up until that moment within fighting, if it makes sense for you, So kind of discovered the word again. And then I saw that Macron and many Western leaders kind of turned around, twisted everything against us. And they're not supporting Israel's right to exist any longer. And then I saw in an Economist and BBC and other fake news channels, again, not PC. I know it. I don't need Trump or anyone else to say it's fake news. I know it because things that I'm doing, they're reporting false. I actually noticed that they're, reports of the Economist. It was how can Israel police its own war crimes? They're brainwashed their viewers, their readers, because they assume that we committing war crimes. I mean, such a huge thing to say, without any foundation, just assume that. And then they're committing war crimes, but how they can police themselves? And that was the easy one. They had harder accusations as well. So this is when I started to speak up. Up until then, I lived in the shades, never posted anything, barely. And then I started post one thing after another. And Baruch Hashem, right now, I just came back from a month speaking tour in the US. This is my 5th speaking tour since October 7th. Spoke in dozens of places, lectures, synagogues, churches, you name it. So it feels that they don't get it. They don't get that Israel is only the first target, only the appetizer. How do you say that word? Appetizer?
Appetizer.
And what they're truly after is not Palestine, but the entire world. And when you see the West blindly open its borders to those radical Muslims and simply allowing them to take over from within, then you know that the white men's guilt are simply blinding the West from saving its own civilians. That I always say that on October 7th, they came to Israel with AK-47s and rockets, but the West, October 7th, is already taking place. A base case scenario, it's around the corner, but they're coming with suits and ties instead of AK-47s and rockets. And this is the silence jihad. Your October 7th is far more dangerous. Because in order to stop them on October 7th, we needed a bunch of guys like me, some aircrafts, and we managed to hold them, to pull them, to stop them. When your October 7th will take place, it won't be reversible, if that's a word. You could never stop it. It will be too late. And how that October 7th looked like? The terror attack in Australia is just the tip of the iceberg. The fact that you have so many radical Muslims like Mamdani and many others in big, huge, major European cities, and they're taking over. And then you have more politicians as radical Muslims and more influencers that are saying serious stuff. For instance, I gotta say this one, Mehdi Hassan on Piers Morgan's show said, and I quote, could never forget this sentence, and he said it just like that. He said, Piers, Hamas is not the core issue. Could you believe it? Hamas, like a terror organization that hijacked its own people, that butchered Holocaust survivors, that raped women, that beheaded babies and put them in the oven. He said, Hamas is not the core issue. Hamas is just a symptom of the core issue. The core issue, he says, is the occupation. And this is how they brainwashed the West. And it feels like the West has a death wish.
So what would you say to the world leaders and to the media who speak about Gaza without ever stepping foot there, not knowing what's going on there?
I've been told just a few weeks back in New York that they're dumb. I disagree on that. Dumb is just lack of knowledge, or you don't have the capacity for that knowledge, you know? That will be a compliment. They're ignorant. I don't care about the Western leaders. I care about the single mother in San Francisco, about the businessman in LA, about this student in DC. I care about the people, because in democracy, just like the US Constitution, we, the people, we are the rulers. So I want to tell them, listen, both in the States, actually in the States, things are way better. But many mayors in the States are allowing terror organizations to rise, such as San Francisco. What I've seen there is completely insane. Tens of thousands of people, literally with signs saying, globalize the intifada. Intifada. They want to murder civilians. They want to globalize it. Crazy. So I would say to those people, hey, wake up. We, on October 6th, never believed that it would happen as well. And the most dangerous thing that we can have is to think that this won't happen to me, just like car accident, just like getting sick, just like divorce, just like any trouble that you can imagine that will pop into your life. Although this particular trouble is the most dangerous, because cancer you can fight, car crash, you can have surgery after it, you can recover. Once radical Islam will have its roots deep enough in your country, then they start act by Sharia law. And this will be too dangerous. Speaking of which, I'm sorry, I had to say that one. In Germany, just a few weeks back, a German court ruled by Sharia law in a civil conflict. Fact check me on that one. That's crazy. German court with Sharia law.
Wow. Why do you think that Hamas propaganda resonates so deeply in the West that they're backing the organization that basically recorded themselves? Everything they did on October 7th, they recorded, and yet they are marching and protesting for them, so to speak. Why do you think that's the case? And does that even surprise you?
No, that's actually that part. I'm surprised by a lot of things that are taking place. For instance, I'm surprised that French people are still thinking that Macron won't lead them to doom. You know, did you know that you have over 750 no-go zones in France? Isn't it too crazy? I mean, when you cannot walk freely in your own city because the police couldn't take things under control, you know it's too late. 750 no-go zones. I found fascinating about French people. Don't say fit. Macron is leading us to be another proxy of Iran and Qatar. By the way, speaking of which, I gotta say that Qatar they have more real estate rather than King Charles within London. They own Paris Saint-Germain, of course, and this is how they can operate the countries throughout their double game. But I'm not surprised about many Americans are protesting in favor of Hamas. I actually debate them and I speak with them and I look at them in their eyes. And I see that you have so many lost souls in this world. Let me give you another, I guess, non-PC and not, how would you say it? I'm not sure if many people will support this argument. But I think that you do have pro-Palestinians, so-called, actually reject that term, but I'll just go with it so people know who I'm talking about. I do think that you have pro-Palestinians that in favor of human lives, meaning that they actually care about other people's suffering. What I'm saying, though, is if you really care about Palestinians, that you should stand with me, because I'm fighting those who are oppressing them, those who are murdering them, hijacked them, beheading them in the streets of Gaza. Just last week, I don't know if you saw it, you have 5 civilians on their knees in the middle of Gaza. Boom, boom, boom. They're executing them. So everybody will see that Hamas is still under control and is still controlling Gaza, and they won't flip over Hamas. I think that many Americans are just, many of the pro-Palestinian Americans are just lost souls, and they're looking for purpose in this life, and they need something to fight for. And you know, most of all, if you want to have meaning for your life, if you want to be a savior, then you need one thing and one thing only, and that is a victim. And this is why they keep pumping the propaganda of the hunger back then, the famine, which never existed, or any other AI stupid videos from Gaza, because they need victim. Otherwise, what purpose do they serve?
Speaking about Qatar, how is it possible for them to shelter Hamas leaders, to support Hamas financially, openly support radical Islam? And then on the other hand, they want to be the mediators, the whole hostage up until now. And then you have them, they're friends with America. They got Al Jazeera. They're funding, all these media personalities in America. This is a little tiny country, but it's just doing so much damage in the world. And why doesn't anybody realize it? Is it just because they are brainwashing people with their money? Or what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think I couldn't agree with you more. Qatar is the bank of world's terrorism, and they play this double game. I don't buy it, not even for a second. Where do you think that the terrorists where did we eliminated terrorists, or why did we attack in Doha in the first place? By the way, I think that was the unsuccessful, most successful attack that you've ever had, because although we never got the targets that we aimed for when we attacked there, we did send a message. Listen, we're going to hunt you down, even if you're in Qatar. So here's what Qatar are doing, and this is why they can do it well. This is why it works for them, because they're playing Western game with Western tools. So they're buying soccer teams such as Paris Saint-Germain, and they're buying real estate, and they're doing business. And this is when the West sees them as legitimate country, supposedly. And they're making sure to pump the propaganda of Palestinians, because this is what brings the legitimacy. And that is a key word, key term in this whole situation. The legitimacy of Hamas being called freedom fighters is only come from the term Palestine, Palestinians. If it wasn't for that, then what do they fight for, if not so-called Palestine, if not the Palestinians, poor Palestinians? So it works for Qatar for two reasons. One, they're playing the Western game, football teams, sports, business, suits, ties, private jets, and stuff like that. Second reason is that they're pumping the propaganda machine to give legitimacy to terror organizations being called freedom fighters. And this is why it works so well, but I don't buy it.
And the other country supporting them is obviously Iran. Do you think that Iran is still that big of a threat? Maybe breakdown of what you think about Iran and their influence on terror.
Great question. I think it's very important to say that Iran is on the verge of collapse with its water drinking system. They don't have as much. Ironically, the only state in the area that can save them is us, Israel. Just now, and the reason that I'm mentioning it is that the terror regime of Iran, the Ayatollah, they're realizing that the people are starting to turn against them. You can see more and more, just these days, ex-military officers and senior members of the parliament are like going against the government. Of course, they have to flee. They have to run away for their lives, because otherwise they'll butcher them in the middle of the street. The terror regime is realizing that with more and more people are going against them from within, and with the water crisis taking place, then they are in under immediate danger of civil war. So they have to give destruction to their people, and they have to find an enemy, or to bring that enemy being relevant again. And this is why I think that another war, another battle, another round with Israel this summer is definitely on the table. I would actually assume or bet that it will take place one way or another. And I think that Iran never was neutralized, I don't think that it looked to the public media as if Iran was on their knees and we got them. You heard victory speeches all over the place. What victory? Have you seen a white flag? In order to claim victory, you need to see either a white flag or a terror regime that is falling, that is like someone is replacing that regime. I haven't seen neither. And Khamenei is still alive. So one of the most dangerous people in the Middle East. So I'm saying that Iran is posing a huge threat, not just on Israel, but the entire West. I don't think that we ever beat them as if we claimed to. Yes, we got them hard, but as you can see, they have right now more and more ballistic missiles, and they are making sure that the nuke plan will take place regardless the attack of the beat.
How do you assess, let's just take a wider look at the last 2 years. Did you think that Israel would be able to do what it has accomplished so far? Where do you think Israel was before October 7th? And where are we now in terms of the strength of the country and everything else?
Military accomplishments are off the roof. To take down Sinwar, Nasrallah, and almost any senior officer that participated, in October 7th, one way or another, got eliminated. And this is amazing. The terror regime of Syria, Assad, has fallen. It's amazing. But problem is we replaced one terrorist with other. It's just people don't get that Giovanni, new leader of Syria, is an ex-ISIS member. So what do you do with that? Even the U.S. claimed and put a price on its head, said it's a terrorist. So I don't get how can you invite a terrorist to your home. But as far as accomplishments, we did huge stuff. I was actually surprised in the good way, of course, but I think that history repeats itself. When I left Gaza the first time in 2014, of course, I've been fighting there ever since more and more. But when we left Gaza in 2014 in the previous war, and I looked back, what I could see is unfinished job. And one actually Arab friend of mine told me, Christian friend, but he told me that even if you leave one Arab on one house that's being left from an entire battlefield that you flattered. I'm sorry, how do you flattened? Thank you.
Flat.
That one Arab with one arm and one leg will climb to the ruins of the one house that's being left out there with a flag says victory. Meaning, if you don't finish the job, and it's not about flattening the entire Gaza Strip to make it a parking lot. It's not about that, because most of the danger, just like you said, is within the tunnels underneath. So when they're saying that Israel took 70% out of Gaza land flat, okay, and where do you think the terrorists are hiding? So I'm sorry. For me, what I'm saying is that I think that we have a long way to go, and we need to finish the job right now. Otherwise, your enemy will rise up again, just like they promising they will, and they will attack you. Because for me and you, our purpose of this life is to create, to build, make. Their purpose is all different. Think about it this way. They're literally having terrorist people that are sending themselves to die just to kill Jews. I saw, and I can send you that link if you want, a video of a mother from Gaza, pregnant, says, I sent 3 of my kids to heaven as Shahid. 3 of her kids tried to murder Israeli civilians and died. And inshallah, she said, her new baby will be the 4th one. This is crazy. And this is when you know that you got to finish the job. Finish the job does not mean kill 2 million Gazans. No, it means just like you did with the Nazis. You could never eliminate the ideology, but you can remove them from power. They will always want to kill you. You will always have to sleep with your sword, not just an Israeli, as a Jew. Look at Australia. Might as well your sword will be a huge one, and there will just have a stick.
Okay. What you said before, that even if there's one Arab left, that he will fight, it reminded me of, I don't know if you've seen this picture, the last Gaza war. Sinwar was sitting on a couch surrounded by ruins, and he thought it was a victory because he's still there on his couch.
That's the mentality. This is what we're missing. If you're not killing them, they're thinking they won.
Yeah. So having said that, number one, do you think that Israel will be going back into Gaza? And number two, do you believe that Hamas, because what I heard is that Hamas has been recruiting for every, Hamas fighter that's killed, they are recruiting more people. So to effectively remove them would be obviously very difficult. Do you think it is something that is actually be able to be accomplished? And also, speaking about the brainwashing. I believe in Japan, it wasn't a religious thing, but over here, it's coming from Islam, right? That these concepts. So doesn't it make that much harder?
It does make it way harder. Look, the key of eliminate Hamas is not just in Gaza. If we want to eliminate Hamas, it doesn't help that we're killing more, eliminating more and more terrorists, because just like you said, just like that, they're recruiting more new soldiers, terrorists. It's not a surprise, think about it this way. You have, on October 7th, you had 15, 16-year-old teenagers in Gaza that right now are 18, 19, and all they saw for the past 2-something years is destruction. They've been pumped this false propaganda that Hamas are hero fighters and Israel and the Zionists are the one to blame. So of course they'll have more and more manpower. They will never run out of manpower. And this is why going again into Gaza won't solve the issue, although we need to. I mean, you have to push them, otherwise they'll push you, But the key is going one subject back is Qatar, is Iran, it's Turkey. And of course, I don't know how I never set it up until now with this talk, the United Nations, the place in which they're getting their legitimacy from, international arena wise. As soon as you'll choke Qatar and you won't allow them to give funds and money to Hamas, as soon as you won't let Erdogan, leader of Turkey, to allow Hamas fundraise money from within Turkey, as soon as you'll remove them. Actually, we need to put them out of law. I mean, you have many terror organizations within the US that are fundraising for terror organizations, armed terror organizations in Gaza. Just like you have FIDF, Friends of FIDF. I'm sorry, just the first organization that pumped into mine. Not part of that organization, but just like you have Friends of something, Friends of Israel, Friends of whatever, you have Friends of Hamas, Friends of Hezbollah, Friends of Jihad Islamic. It's crazy. And as long as they're letting them within the US to fundraise, they will never run out of support or money. They will never run out of manpower as well. I actually met in Columbus Square Park in DC, in Manhattan. I saw these two girls, purple hair-ish, with a Palestinian flag in a stand, in a public stand, and they give those flyers saying that Israel, IDF, Zionists are the new Nazis. And I came over and I said, "Hey, what's up? May I ask what you guys are doing?" And they said, "Yeah, of course, we're fundraising for a family that's been hurt in Palestine." And then I said, "You know what? I'm actually an IDF Special Forces reservist, and can I tell you something?" And they said, "No, F off." The hypocrisy. But they're literally fundraising from within New York, from within the US for terror organizations.
I want to ask you one last question.
Please.
Your grandfather survived Auschwitz. Your father fought in 1973. You're fighting now. Do you believe that this war can actually end that cycle? Or do you think that us as Jews have to, always be on guard for the next threat out there?
I believe the Jews will always have to sleep with their swords. And as long as that sword won't be sharp and you don't know how to use it, then we will pay with blood. And it's not because we're bad people. It's because we did a terrible crime, and that is to survive the Holocaust and then to actually build a state and then to win every single war that they been waging on us ever since 1949. I do, however, think that the biggest enemy right now that we all have to put in our minds, of course, it's radical Muslims, radical Islam. Biggest enemy is PC. As long as you won't say it out loud, you have to name it, blame it, flame it. As long as you won't say radical Muslims shouting Allahu Akbar, it's not about in the middle of Manchester, in the middle of New York. It's not about freedom of religion, exercising there. No. Those chants are the same chants that they're chanting right before they're stabbing, exploding, shooting. And they want to do it because they want you to know that they got to your front or backyard. As long as you won't tell them that they're not allowed to protest with face mask, As long as we won't tell them that they're not allowed to fundraise for money to advocate for terror, then they will keep using the democracy tools against the democracy, against the West.
Amazing. Stav, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. I want to thank you for everything that you do for the Jewish people, for the state of Israel. If there's anything you want to plug, how can people find you, learn, stay in touch with you? You're welcome to do that.
Well, first of all, sir, thank you for the honor and the privilege. I told you before, I've been following your show, your news, your YouTube channel for a while now. And I'm so glad that you're starting doing these interviews, because I personally want to know what you think and how you can put the truth out there in your own unique way. Those questions have never been asked. And I've been doing it for a while. So you're very good.
I'm interviewing to start asking my questions.
Thank you for the honor. Instagram will be best. Stav Cohen _IL. And also have YouTube and website, but Instagram will be best.
Amazing. Thank you so much.